In today's world of market volatility and uncertainty, your retirement plans need to be front and center. With ever-changing tax laws, healthcare worries, and an unpredictable stock market, don't overlook the vulnerability in your retirement planning. Protecting your family and estate will be difficult with shifting policies in Washington. It's more important than ever to keep an eye on retirement.
Hi, and welcome into Eye on Retirement, the weekly show that keeps you in the know about all things retirement. I'm your host and financial advisor, Rick Everett, and today we're discussing what happens when your spouse or partner has a health crisis and how that can significantly affect your retirement. That's exactly why we've gathered a team of professionals for this episode. Today our panel includes Julie Newton, financial advisor from Market Advisory Group; Susan Curtis, tax professional from Market Tax Services; Jenna Moody, paralegal at Eidelman Law Firm; and Taylor Bevan, healthcare advisor from Market Medicare Advisors. Welcome in, everyone. Julie, losing a loved one is something most people will experience at some point in retirement, and how you're able to navigate that as it pertains to retirement plans you've already set in place will depend on how well you've planned for your retirement. Now, I've talked to several people in similar situations as an advisor myself. It's not always an easy conversation to have, is it?
No, it's not an easy conversation because, let's face it, when we're thinking about our retirement, and a lot of us more than others maybe, but as we start thinking about retirement, we're thinking about the things we want to do. Read books. We want to travel. Well, maybe that's just me. We want to travel, turning off the long alarm clock forever. Those are those things that we're thinking about that we want to do. We don't think about those tough things that we have to address when it comes to retirement.
But then mortality can raise its ugly head.
It does more often than not, unfortunately, because, let's face it, that's the inevitable. And as we face those retirement years, those are the things that are going to have to be addressed. I find that a lot of advisors have shied away from that conversation with the people they talk to, unfortunately. And so when people come to visit us, they're not really prepared to start that conversation. And sometimes they're a little surprised when we have to go there.
So where do you begin when you broach this uncomfortable subject?
So I usually start, first of all, with our MAG report, which is uncovering all of the different pieces, all those red flags, doing that very thorough analysis. But one of the first things I start with is, what is your major concern? What keeps you awake at night as a retiree? What do you not want to happen during your retirement that is in your control? And so we just sort of have a conversation from there.
So set the stage for the couple that we're talking about today.
Okay. So in their situation, this is Calvin. And Calvin was the only one who could come to visit me to have this meeting, was because his wife has a very significant health crisis, happened almost 2 years ago, and so she doesn't get out of the home as much. And so Calvin came in and just sort of began kind of lining that all out for us. There's a lot of things going on. He's still working. Fortunately, he's been able to work from home, but he's kind of wearing out because she needs more care than he can provide. And so it's getting really difficult, and they're considering a lot of different options. So for them, it was really a matter of, sort of figuring out what was most important. And obviously in their situation, conversation turned to his wife, Becky.
What do you address in a situation like this as priority number one?
Well, priority number one in this case, obviously, because we work with the estate planning team, my first concern was serious health issue. Do you have those power of attorney documents in place? Because what if Becky cannot make financial decisions, healthcare decisions for herself? Are those documents in place where they need to be?
Jenna Moody, you're our paralegal with Eidelman Law Firm. I'm sure this isn't the first time you've had to have this kind of a tough conversation with someone. How does it usually go?
So typically when we have these kinds of conversations, it's just important to, just make sure everybody's just relaxed and understanding that we just need information about, your particular situation. And for Calvin and Becky, we found out that, he had power of attorney for finance for Becky to help her make financial decisions, which was good because you can't always make decisions for a spouse. Just with financial power of attorney, you have to do things sometimes as an agent, not as a spouse. And so that piece was okay, but what we found is that they did not have healthcare powers of attorney. So, Calvin was getting up there in age, and just because Becky had some health concerns now didn't mean that if something happened to Calvin, you never know what's coming for you. So, we were concerned that if something unexpectedly happened to Calvin, who was going to help Becky make decisions? So it's important that you not only kind of, have the idea and the conversation around, yeah, my spouse is going to be there for me, but what happens if something happens to my spouse? They didn't have children, so a lot of times that conversation's, my kids will, step in, but that wasn't the case in this case.
So does that present unique challenges, if you will, when they don't have relatives that live nearby?
Absolutely. Proximity is key, especially when you're talking about healthcare decisions, because if there's an emergency and somebody needs to be making decisions, quickly, sometimes, 2 a.m, you can't get somebody on the phone, or, there's all kinds of things that, that can go wrong. And so if you have a trusted friend or a trusted relative or someone else that you can rely on that can make quick decisions until someone that maybe lives out of state can get there, those are kinds of things that you need to think through when you're doing some estate planning.
It's an uncomfortable situation when someone is faced with their own mortality. Mm-hmm. And it further makes it unique. I've run into this situation several times when I'm visiting with clients, whether they're single or they're married, but no children. And in some cases, when they're advanced in years, no living relatives nearby. Mm-hmm. How do you guide someone in that situation where they don't have family?
So at that point, we're asking a lot of questions. What is important to you? Because, typically if people don't have family, I have found more often than not that they have something, their church or their charity or Meals on Wheels. I mean, there are so many things that people have that they find close to their heart that they would want to contribute to when they pass away. But we have to be talking to them about, their life and figuring out what's going on with them and just, kind of getting to know them better to know what's appropriate.
These are the kinds of things that shouldn't be put off. It's important to get your estate plan in place so that your loved ones don't have to deal with the fallout without you. Having a whole team, it can help. And all it takes is a 15-minute introductory call to find out what you could be missing. To set up that 15-minute phone call with Market Advisory Group, just dial 833-MAG-REPORT. That's 833-MAG-REPORT. Or you can visit our website at ionretirement.com. There you can also check out past episodes where we dive deep into retirement pitfalls that you don't want to be tripping into. Stay tuned. When we come back, we'll talk about what future healthcare needs are for Calvin and Becky, and we'll do that right after this.
Out on the water, there is a moment. Perfect synchronization. The team working together in harmony to reach their goal. Now, imagine finding a team of financial professionals to help run your course down the river of retirement. Market Advisory Group is that team. financial advisors, tax professionals, estate planning attorneys, and Medicare advisors, all in the same boat. If you don't have a team like this in one place, it can become a hassle to relay information between them. When you come to Market Advisory Group, we bring everyone together for you to get you answers in real time, to help make sure you don't miss something that puts your unique plan off course. You shouldn't be the one doing all the work to keep your retirement on pace. You should have a team in the boat with you. Your voice telling them where you're at, where you'd like to end up, and how you want to get there. And at that point, everyone falls into sync, all pulling in the same direction, toward the same purpose. Your retirement's financial security. We are Market Advisory Group, proud sponsor of Shocker Rowing.
Welcome back into Ion Retirement. Julie, in the last segment, we were talking about Calvin and Becky and addressing what some of their estate planning needs could potentially be. But now I want to turn it a little bit and talk about what their health care issues were.
So fortunately for Calvin, it wasn't that complicated because although he's 67, he's still working, still has health insurance through his employer. And so Becky will be on that. However, the problem is that Calvin plans to retire the end of this year. And when that happens, he can go on Medicare, but Becky's not 65 yet, so she can't go on Medicare.
Taylor Bevan with Market Medicare Advisors. Let's talk first about Calvin's Medicare.
Yeah, so Calvin decided to delay starting Medicare because he knew he was going to continue to work and be covered by his employer insurance. And most people don't realize that that is an option. They think that as soon as they turn 65, they have to switch and sign up. So he went ahead and stayed on his employer insurance. They were considered credible coverage. So he didn't have to worry about having any lapse in coverage and occurring any extra penalties on his Medicare premiums. So he had actually also gone a step further and had made the initiative to get his Part A turned on. So when he does decide that he is ready to retire, we typically like clients to come in about 2 months before they want their Part B premium, or not premium, sorry, Part B Medicare to start. That way we can get 2 additional forms faxed in to, 1, show that you did have creditable coverage through your employer, and 2, to give them that start date of when you would like it to start. And those forms are the CMS 40B and the CMS L564. And we do help clients get those faxed in so that they don't have to worry about having those premium extra charges for going without coverage.
You know, I work with you guys every day, and when you start naming off forms, it's almost like a foreign language to me, so I can't imagine what it's like to the audience. Another illustration of why it's good to have a whole team working for you. Let's talk about Becky, though. It's my understanding that Becky was only 64, and so she was still on Calvin's coverage?
Right. So while he was working, he covered both of them. And with him wanting to look at retiring and him getting off of that employer insurance, that would leave Becky without being covered. So we needed to really look at what her options were and what was going to be the best option. And we actually ended up looking at some ACA plans that would fit for her to get her up to her 65th birthday when she could then go on Medicare herself.
Let's change courses just a little bit and talk about powers of attorney. Since Calvin has power of attorney, is he able to make healthcare decisions for Becky?
Yeah, so since he has power of attorney, he does have the authority to make those decisions. But if Becky is of sound mind and she wants to be the one making those decisions, she does also still have the right to do so.
What will Medicare end up looking like for Becky when she does in fact turn 65? Supplemental or Advantage? And if so, in either event, why?
So ultimately, that is just going to depend on the person themselves. We are fiduciary based, so we don't really steer people in a direction of one or the other. We really get them in the office and ask them the questions that get them thinking about where they want to see their medical path go. And then that helps us give them the information that they need to have all the ammo to make the best decision for themselves. Because at the end of the day, it's what they're needing out of their health insurance, not what we think is going to be best for them.
Julie, it almost sounds like Calvin has a big job ahead of him going into his retirement.
You know what? Most people do. Some people just aren't quite aware of how big that job is. So that's kind of why we take that team approach to help introduce people to how big that job might be.
Julie just said it, and that's why we take the team approach. It takes a whole team. Financial advisors working with tax advisors, Medicare advisors working with estate planning attorneys. And if you'd like to see if this team approach will work for you, it could take as little as 15 minutes. And to set up that 15-minute introductory phone call, just reach out right now at 833-MAG-REPORT. That's 833-MAG-REPORT, or check out our website at ionretirement.com. There you can also watch past episodes or submit a question for us to use possibly on a future show. You won't want to miss the final segment of today's Ion Retirement. We'll be talking about taxes and what that will look like for Calvin and Becky. Stay tuned.
How confident are you in your current financial plan? Do you know with certainty how the recent market volatility will affect your future hopes and dreams? How much are you paying in taxes? And how much are you losing to unnecessary high fees? You didn't work to save this money so that you could spend your time worried in retirement. Now is the time to take charge of your finances so you can feel confident about your future. Call in during the next 30 minutes of today's show only to set up an absolutely complimentary, no obligation, full-blown financial review that will result in your own customized written plan. We'll start with a full-blown analysis of what you already have. By running a report to untangle how much you are currently paying in fees, how you're allocated for risk, and what it's costing to work with your current advisor. Next, we'll identify your goals. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Where do you want to go, and who do you hope to go there with? Is your current financial plan set up to get you there without mishap? Let's design a roadmap to create a financial plan you can follow with confidence. Get the piece that so many people are missing from their retirement. Find out how having a written plan can make a difference to your retirement dreams. Call now to schedule your complimentary, no-obligation, full-blown financial review today.
Welcome back into Ion Retirement. We're continuing Calvin and Becky's story. Julie, we haven't talked about taxes yet, and I remember that was one of Calvin's major concerns.
It was one of his major concerns. You know, when people come in, typically they'll say something like, well, you know, we'll ask what brings them in, and they're usually going to launch right into that, as you know, that very first thing. But one of the great things about our MAG report is that it helps us kind of help navigate them through all of the different things, and we're able to find out other areas of concern, which is what happened in Calvin and Becky's situation. But again, it had to come back to taxes.
I would guess that since that was one of his major concerns, he was pretty happy that you were addressing it right out of the gate.
Well, you know, it's a big deal when that's your big concern. You know, you want to make sure that gets addressed.
Caring for a loved one with health care issues can be a real challenge if you don't have the proper support in place to help you in doing that.
Exactly. So in Calvin's situation, it was getting to be a very difficult thing for him. You know, none of us are getting any younger. And so he was caring for her by himself. As we said earlier, no local family. He does have a sister and family in St. Louis. And so he was kind of hoping that he would be able to move closer to family to get some help with that care, especially after he retires end of year.
Now, in a lot of cases, healthcare issues can kind of push us into a position where we have to take actions that we wouldn't have normally planned on taking. And it's my understanding that they needed to actually sell a home and then have to deal with some of those tax consequences.
Exactly. So they have their primary residence, which they live in, but then they also have a vacation home in Texas. Right now, for a while, they had leased it out, but they're kind of trying to get away from that because that's a really big responsibility. And so the question is, do I sell that vacation home or do I continue with that responsibility?
Susan Curtis with Market Tax Services. Do you find most people are clear on the tax consequences of selling a vacation home and potentially their residence as well?
No, a lot of times they have a lot of questions, and like one of the big differences is with a vacation home, you have, because it's not your primary residence, you can be taxed with capital gains taxes up to 20%. But, you know, if you have proper tax planning, we can help mitigate some or all of those taxes.
And what about when it comes to the potential having to sell the primary residence?
So as long as they've lived in the residence for 2 out of the 5 years, they can exclude up to $500,000 in capital gains, and that depends on their filing status. And then anything over the exclusion amount would be taxed up to 20%. You know, and then, you know, with in Calvin's case, we have to be careful because what we do could affect his Social Security, you know, the taxability of that, and it could also affect his Medicare premiums and Becky's Medicare premiums.
But it's not just how much they're paying in capital gains on the sales of these properties, right? There are so many other factors that come into play.
Correct.
And would it be a fair assumption, and it's a presupposed question, I already have a formulated answer in my mind, but where we start with clients in this planning process, whether it's the financial end, the Medicare end, the estate planning end, where we initially start with people, and this is a critical piece of information, Julie, it's not just a set it and forget it type proposal.
No, it cannot be. And I think that's something that always shocks people because, you know, unfortunately, there are advisors out there who do the set it and forget it approach, whether they're estate planning or Medicare or even financial. It's here's your plan, see you in a year or see you whenever. And people come into us all the time and they've never had a conversation with their advisor, whatever kind of advisor that is. And that's traumatic. We don't take that set it and forget it kind of approach because it doesn't make any sense. Life is constantly changing, especially in retirement. You know, Calvin and Becky didn't expect some sort of injury to cause Becky to be in this particular health situation that she's in now. Nobody expects those kinds of things to happen. Nobody expects to get hit by the beer truck. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, those kinds of things happen. And when those things happen, it takes a team approach to be prepared for those.
How often do you like to sit down with your investment clients and just make sure that everything is on track?
You know, we're going to sit down at least a couple of times a year, sometimes more often. Going to depend on their situation and how things are changing, especially if somebody's going to retire in the middle of a year. But at least a couple of times, especially this time of year, to do that tax planning piece, Because if we go into January 1 and we're not prepared for those taxes, then Susan and I are going to have a big problem helping folks get through that. So I'm always relying on Susan for those pieces this time of year to make sure we're prepared.
And when it comes to effective retirement planning, every aspect can affect the other aspect. And at the end of the day, we just want to help people. That's why we offer these 15-minute introductory phone calls. A lot of these calls are retirees asking questions and us helping them. And it ends there. But a lot of folks that we talk to also see the value of having an entire team working on their behalf with them as the focus. To set up the 15-minute introductory phone call, dial now 833-MAG-REPORT and check out our website at ionretirement.com. That's all the time we have for this episode. I'm Rick Everett with the entire panel, reminding you that we're here to keep an eye on retirement.
Unless otherwise indicated, all client and prospect names mentioned on this show have been changed to protect the identities of the individuals discussed. Investment advisory services are offered through Foundations Investment Advisors LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The content provided is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The views, statements, and opinions expressed herein are those of the individual speakers and not necessarily those of Foundations and its affiliates. The information contained herein does not constitute an offer to sell any securities or represent an express or implied opinion or endorsement of any specific investment opportunity, offering, or issuer. Any discussion of performance or returns are not indicative of future results. Each individual investor situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Foundations only transacts business in the states where it is registered or excluded or exempt from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by security regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. No legal or tax advice is provided. Always consult with a tax professional. Legal services are offered by Eidelman Law Firm. Tax services offered by Market Tax Services. Market Advisory Group does not provide legal or tax advice. Any comments regarding safe and secure investments and guaranteed income streams refer only to fixed insurance products. They do not in any way refer to investment advisory products. Rates and guarantees provided by insurance products and annuities are subject to the financial strength of the issuing insurance company, not guaranteed by any bank or the FDIC. The guest commentators featured in this show are not investment advisor representatives of Foundations and do not provide advisory services. Market Advisory Group does have several investment advisor representatives that can provide such services. This is not endorsed or affiliated with any U.S. government agency, the Social Security Administration, or associated with any federal Medicare program. We do not offer every plan available in your area. Any information we provide is limited to those plans we do offer in your area. Please contact Medicare.gov or 1-800-MEDICARE to get information on all of your options. A Roth conversion may not be suitable for your situation. The primary goal in converting retirement assets into a Roth IRA is to reduce the future tax liability on the distributions you take in retirement or on the distributions of your beneficiaries. The information provided is to help you determine whether or not a Roth IRA conversion may be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Please review your retirement savings, tax, and legacy planning strategies with your legal/tax advisor to be sure a Roth IRA conversion fits into your planning strategies. All rights reserved.
Why are all these words underlined?
Dear friend, I'm still being held against my will.
What do you expect of me?
I expect you to do your job. What's the going rate for a hat in the Sunday edition?
What's the headline?
Sheriff ignores possible kidnapping.
Dear friend, please find me. Please free me. Because there's a monster who comes at night. And night never ends in this place.